So, our topic for today, not knowing is not a belief. Uh, Often I talk about not knowing as being a place where truth is. And to talk about not knowing kind of immediately turns it into something you have to kind of agree with or believe in, I guess. I really like the idea of not knowing something. It sounds peaceful. But I really know things, you know. So in the method, I start with prove what's real without thinking when thinking's not happening. Why? Because truth, the beautiful thing about truth, is that you don't have to believe in it. It doesn't require belief. There's a truth that can be unveiled, so to speak, that does not require belief making. So by saying, what is real right now when I'm not thinking? What can I prove? What is known for certain? You get an answer. And it's not something you believe in or you have to kind of agree with. It's a black and white answer. Well, you could say, well, I don't really get an answer, Kyle. That's the answer. The answer is that there is no answer to who you are, to what you are. Truth inherently is a mystery. That's the answer. And a mystery is something that can't be figured out. So when you say, prove what's real without thinking, what is real right now without thinking? There's a bit of confusion, perhaps, initially. And confusion is close to the truth. It's close. It's not quite the truth. But when you're in a confused place, the only difference between truth and confusion is that when you're in a confused place, there's still the tendency, the need or the urge to get out of it, to get into a place of intellectual understanding. Right? In truth, you're in the same clueless place, but there's just an acceptance that that's enough, that that's okay. I was not knowing that you were broadcasting. Literally stumbled across the live stream. Yeah, good. Life kind of works that way, doesn't it? It's more fun when you stumble across things. So that's if you feel into it, it's a very liberating thing to notice. That the truth that all of the great sages and spiritual books all point to, you got. It's in you. It is you. And you find it by pointing out the illusoriness of knowledge, of secondhand knowledge, by just asking that simple question. What is known for certain when thinking's not happening? Now the mind says intelligence leaves when thinking's not happening. Obviously that's not true. When thinking stops, intelligence can still inquire and look. Haven't you noticed anything you believe in, anything, it's kind of flimsy, you know? It's like walking on cardboard boxes, you know? Never really sure of your footing. You don't know when it might just collapse. Yeah, they can seem solid just to look at them, you know? The presentation of them. But to live them, to embody them, there's a great deal of anxiety that's required to do that. Because it's not your immediate direct experience of life. No belief is. That's really the antithesis of belief, isn't it? Experiencing life directly. Again, we only settle for belief, like everything else we settle for, when there's a rejection, a continuous rejection of what we got, of what's here. And the good news about giving up belief is that you also have to give up fear with it, because fear is belief, is a part of belief, right? You mean I have to give up believing that things are going to get better, get okay? Yeah. But you also have to give up this idea, this belief that things are not going to get better, are not going to be okay. You have to give up all of it. So you don't win, but you don't lose. So there's kind of a winning in that. And by kind of, I mean enlightenment, being awake. So it's a big kind of. As all words are a form of knowing, obviously to say not knowing is not actually not knowing, right? It's still kind of having an idea, a knowing about what not knowing is. So the real not knowing is just silence. Just silence. And everything that happens in that silence. So you could say that true silence only arises from acceptance first. Because if there's something you're still harboring, resisting, fighting, and you're trying to go into a quiet place, it's not really going to work. It's not going to last for long. Right? First, there's acceptance. Deep, deep acceptance. Just everything. And a byproduct of that is silence. Really, silence is only ever a byproduct. If it's real silence, it's only ever a byproduct of just deep acceptance of whatever, of everything. So you can feel it. Let's say you're inside of your mind right now, and maybe there's a little bit of a battle going on with something inside of your body. You can feel it. Maybe it's trying to get this truth thing right, or get this silence thing right, or get something to get out of here, or leave, turn into something else. Just by saying, you know what, I accept, I succumb, I give in. Suddenly, poof, pop, 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 pop. All those little problem bubbles are gone. Just by that one swipe of that sword of acceptance. And what's left? Silence. Feels like a big jump. Does it later feel like there's a landing? Yeah, I know that it feels like a big jump, for sure. It should, if you're really approaching this authentically. It should feel like that sometimes. Does it ever feel like you're landing? No. But you get used to it. That's the difference, right? It's maybe a little unsettling at first, but the more you do it, the more it becomes your modus operandi, this acceptance thing, the more comfortable you become with not landing. In fact, that's really the place you realize where you want to be, because it's where there's freedom. Freedom's in falling, always, 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 not in landing anywhere. What's the biggest pain in the butt for any skydiver out there? That eventually they have to come down, hit the land. That feeling of falling doesn't last. If only they knew. They don't have to go to 15,000 feet and jump out of an airplane. Yeah, you can just do it all the time while your feet are on the ground. Skydiving. Really, the appeal of it is that there's just this deep acceptance. You're giving yourself up to whatever's going to happen. You've passed the point of no return now. Either that parachute opens or it doesn't. And come what may of it. And because of that, there's just this deep acceptance. And the falling is really savored. So what? Whatever happens next. I'm fully alive, fully alert to this. And even if the worst thing happens next, and yet you were enjoying this acceptance thing all the way up until it happens. Say it happens. Say that bad thing happens. If your mode in life is acceptance, then is that bad thing really going to be experienced that way? Or are you just going to just do more of the same? Is there just going to be more acceptance? A deepening of it. There's really nothing I can say when you say feels like a big jump. The most I can say to kind of nudge you, to convince you to go and take that step, that final step, is just to look back. Look at the track record of not jumping. What's it gotten you? What is not accepting and giving in to life, the will of life? What has it gotten you? And be really ruthlessly honest. Tear down destroy the rosy colored glasses and just be honest. Have an honest look. What has the non-acceptance of life gotten you? Because that's really the only reason you really start experimenting with this acceptance stuff. It's not because it's going to appear more appealing than the other. It's just going to be obvious. It'll only start happening when it becomes obvious that the alternative just ain't really working. It's not living up to its promises. That's where this trust comes in. It's wild trust. Non-acceptance of life has honestly only gotten stress, anxiety, and frustration. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much all it can give you. How do you accept life? Is there a way to do it? No. The truth of you is already accepting itself. Life is already accepting itself. It's undivided. So you don't do acceptance. It really just comes down to whether or not there's an interest or a willingness, a yearning to notice non-acceptance. Once that's there, what we call acceptance is happening. Right? It's no longer allowing the darkness to operate undercover. Okay, now I'm really depressed. My rose-colored glasses have been my shield. Yeah, I think I said to you, what was it? Wasn't it when we were talking one time? What were we talking about? Yeah, you're not depressed right now. It was always there. The depression was always underneath the surface, in the background. We were talking about optimism and pessimism. Optimism really kind of has pessimism there lurking in disguise. You know? Have you noticed when you're optimistic about something, it's because you're trying to push away this pessimistic view of things that you have underneath the surface? And if you're pessimistic, it's really that you're kind of secretly optimistic that through your pessimism, things will kind of somehow work out in your favor. There's no freedom in optimism, and obviously no freedom in pessimism. They go together. They need each other. It's all one big depression package. There is a freedom outside of that the mind can't understand. How can there be freedom outside of optimism? They can't understand anything other than what it is, which is a problem solver. A solution haver or getter, which is all just fantasy. Freedom doesn't need solutions. Truth doesn't need solutions. That optimism is bad as pessimism. Yeah, it still kind of sounds like pessimism. Have you noticed that your mind can only really sit in one of those two places? It really doesn't sit in tranquility. It's either slightly optimistic or slightly pessimistic. Truth, the middle way, that which inquires into itself, the nature of itself, is the only place where there's true peace and silence, freedom. As soon as there's a happening that's either a little bit optimistic or a little bit pessimistic, it's got to be one or the other. Mind is just a polarity entertainer. Right? That's all it is. A polarity player. Without polarity, there's no need for it. What we're talking about here is waking up into a freedom that's beyond polarity. Not above it, just behind it. It's there behind polarity, just watching the whole madness play happen. And you'll notice, I'll always probably blabber a bit because it's just fun to do, but have you noticed when you listen to my words, your mind is either categorizing something in a good way as it interprets the words, or in a bad way. Right? It's always trying to put it into one of those two places. And the truth, periodically, as the talking's happening, is just, nah. I get it, Kyle.